Welcome to Unpacked Thoughts, the space where we strip away the noise and dive into what really matters. Today's topic: the purposeful life. The purposeful life. Why I stopped chasing and started living. I had the title, the deals, the network, but I was hollow. In this episode, I share the personal shift that changed how I lead, build, and live, from desire driven execution to purpose driven presence. If you're winning on the outside but exhausted on the inside, this one's for you. You know, there was a season in my life where I had everything on paper: the title, the income, the network, the deal flow. I was executing at the highest level, building things that mattered, making moves that looked brilliant from the outside. But I was exhausted, and not the kind of exhausted you fix with a vacation or a long weekend. I was exhausted in my soul because I was chasing, always chasing the next round, the next milestone, the next thing I convinced myself would finally make me feel like I'd arrived. And one morning, I remember this so clearly. I sat in my car after a board meeting, started the car, looked at the steering wheeling, and this thought hit me like a train. I have no idea why I'm doing any of this. That was the beginning of everything changing for me. And I want to share that with you today. Not theory, not a framework from a business book. My actual experience of waking up to a different way of living, a way that's more purposeful, more present, and honestly, more effective than anything I'd done before. So, if you're someone who's operating at a high level, maybe you're running a company, managing a portfolio, leading a transformation, sitting in rooms where real decisions get made, and somewhere underneath all of that you feel a quiet emptiness you can't quite name. Stay with me, because I was with you, and what I learned changed everything. Let me tell you what I was doing wrong, because I think a lot of people in our world are doing the same thing without realizing it. I was running on desire, desire to prove myself, desire to build something nobody could ignore, desire to be the person in every room that everyone listened to. And look, desire is a powerful engine. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it didn't get me far. It did. It got me very far. But here's what desire does when it becomes your primary fuel: it makes you completely dependent on outcomes. Every day becomes a pass fail test. You close the deal, you feel alive. You lose the deal, you feel worthless. Your identity gets welded to results. And when your identity is welded to results, you're never at peace. You can't be. It's structurally impossible. I watched this pattern destroy some of the most talented people I know. CEOs who couldn't sleep without medication, founders who built $100 million companies and told me privately they felt emptier than when they started. Investors who kept doubling down on the next deal, the next fund, the next thesis, because stopping meant sitting in silence, and silence terrified them. It terrified me too. The common thread with all of us: we were living in a future that didn't exist yet, sacrificing the present moment, the only moment that actually is real, for some version of tomorrow we believed would finally be enough. It's never enough. I know that now. I lived it. So what changed? It wasn't one dramatic moment. There was no retreat in Bali, no single book that rewired my brain overnight. It was a slow, honest reckoning with myself. I started asking a different question. Instead of what do I want, which had been my operating system for years, I started asking, who am I when I'm not chasing anything? And that question terrified me because I didn't have an answer. I had spent so many years defining myself by what I was building, what I was acquiring, what I was achieving, that I had no idea who I was underneath all of it. Strip away the title, the company, the portfolio, the reputation, and I didn't know the person looking back at me in the mirror. That's where purpose lives, by the way. Not in your accomplishments, not in your fund size, not in how many people report to you. Purpose lives in the space between who you are, how you show up, regardless of the outcome. It's the thing that remains when everything external falls away. And if you've never tested that, you've never sat with yourself in the absence of all the noise and all the wins and all the validation. You might not know your purpose yet, and that's okay, but it's worth finding. Let me give you a real example of what this shift looks like in practice. Because I know if you're like me, you don't want philosophy. You want something you can use on Monday morning. I used to walk into a negotiating thinking, I need to win this. I need this deal. The stakes felt enormous every single time. And I felt the tension in my chest, the tightness in my jaw. Every meeting was a performance, and the stress was constant before, during, and after. Now, I walk into the same room with a completely different posture. I think I'm going to show up fully. I'm going to bring the absolute best of what I know, and whatever happens, it's what's supposed to happen. Now, before you think I've gone soft, let me be very clear. This is not passive. This is not lazy. This is the most powerful form of execution I have experienced because it's execution without attachment. When you operate without attachment to outcomes, something remarkable happens. You think more clearly, you listen better, you make decisions from wisdom instead of fear. You're not reactive, you're not desperate, you're grounded. And ironically, and I genuinely mean this, your results get better because people can feel the difference. They can feel when you're present versus when you're performing. Presence builds trust. Performance builds suspicion. I've seen it in every room I walked into since I made this shift. Here's the biggest lie I ever believed, and I believed it for a long time. The lie was that happiness was waiting for me somewhere in the future. After the funding closes, after the company scales, after the portfolio crosses this number, after the board seat, after the exit, after. Happiness is not a destination. I need you to actually hear that, not just nod at it. It is not something you arrive at. It's something you practice. It's something you choose in the smallest, most ordinary, most unremarkable moments of your day. I started paying attention to what actually makes me feel alive. And it shocked me because it was never big wins. It was a conversation with a younger founder who was stuck, and I helped them see one thing clearly. It was the morning walk where I didn't check my phone for the first 25 minutes and just noticed the sky. It was the sitting with my family at dinner and being fully there, not thinking about the email I need to send, not rehearsing tomorrow's pitch, just there, Happiness for me became about subtraction, not adding more. Subtracting the noise, subtracting the compulsive need to impress, subtracting the constant comparison to people who are playing a game. I realized I don't even want to play. And when you subtract desires from the equation, what's left is contentment. And if I want to push on this, because this is where people get confused, especially during complex situations for driven people and people like us. Contentment is not complacency. Contentment means you can be fully engaged, fully ambitious, fully committed to building something that matters. Without your inner peace, depending whether it works out, you do the work because the work itself has meaning, not because of what it will get you. That's freedom. That is real, unshakable freedom. All right, let me get some practical with you, because philosophy without practice is just intellectual entertainment, and we don't have time for that. Here's what I actually do every day to live this way. I protect my mornings. The first hour of my day belongs to me, not to the market, not to my inbox, not to anyone else's agenda, not to the news cycle. I use that hour to ground myself. Sometimes a meditation, sometimes it's journaling, sometimes it's just sitting in total silence and asking myself one question: what matters today? And what's urgent? Not what's loud, what actually matters. I check my motives constantly. Before I take a meeting, before I make a commitment, before I say yes to anything new, I ask myself, am I doing this from purpose or from desire? From clarity or from fear of missing out? That one simple question has saved me from more bad decisions than any spreadsheet or analysis ever could. I practice gratitude like it's a discipline, not a bumper sticker, not a feel good exercise, a discipline. Every evening, I reflect on what went well, not what I achieved, but what I experienced. The quality of a conversation, a moment of unexpected insight, the simple fact that I'm healthy and here and breathing. That might sound soft to some of you, but I'll tell you what's soft. Crumbling under pressure because you have no foundation. Gratitude is the foundation. And the hardest practice of all, I let go of outcomes. I do the work. I bring everything I have. I prepare. I execute. I show up at the highest level I'm capable of. And then I release it. I don't white knuckle my way through life anymore. I've learned the hard way that control is an illusion. And the tighter you try to grip life, the more it slips through your fingers. And let me say this before someone misunderstands me. I'm not talking about life without difficulty. Challenges will come, markets will shift, deals will fail through. People you trusted will disappoint you. That's not stress. That's just life. Stress, real, chronic, soul-crushing stress, is what happens when you resist what is. When you're sitting in a meeting, but you're not in the meeting, you're running scenarios about 3 things that could go wrong tomorrow. When with your kids, but your mind is at the office. When you're lying in bed at 2 in the morning, your thoughts are racing about a deal that hasn't even happened yet. That's desire at work. Desire for things to be different than they are. Desire for certainty in an uncertain world. Desire for control in a world that doesn't owe you control. And that desire creates a gap between where you are, where you think you should be, and that gap, that's where all your stress lives, every single bit of it. So close the gap. Be where you are. Do what's in front of you. Trust the process you've built. Trust the team you've hired. Trust yourself. That's not giving up. That's the most intentional, most disciplined, most courageous way to live I've ever found. If you're listening to this right now, maybe on a morning commute, maybe on a late night walk, maybe in your office with the doors closed, and you are in that place I was, running hard, winning on the outside, but feeling hollow on the inside, I want you to know something. You don't need to burn it all down. You don't need to quit. You don't need to walk away from everything you built. You just need to change why you're doing it. Shift from seeking to serving, from acquiring to contributing, from performing to being present. The work doesn't change, you change. And when you change, everything around you transforms. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in the life of leaders I work with. The transformation is quiet, but it is total. Purpose isn't something you find out there somewhere. It's something you remember. It was always there underneath the ambition, underneath the hustle, underneath the noise. It's a quiet voice that says, "This is enough. You are enough right here, right now." Live from that place, build from that place, lead from that place, and watch what happens. Thank you for being here. I mean that. If this resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, a partner, a co founder, a friend who's grinding and can't find the off switch. Sometimes the right word at the right moment can change a life. Until next time, be purposeful, be present, be free.